So Bobby from Friends of Walbran is going to teach us a little bit more about what's going on right now and how we got to this point.
Thank you so very much, and it's a real honor to be in this amazing room with all these people who care so much about the natural world and protecting this great inheritance of the ancient forest and what's left of it on southern Vancouver Island. I have to say it's the first time I've ever given a slide presentation in a store, and so that's really neat. Thank you for being outside of the box and for generating this incredibly inspiring creative idea of running through the wet rainforest around the winter solstice.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine it.
Okay.
I mean, the closest I've ever come to running through the forest is basically, being like almost knee-deep in mud in my gumboots. So I'm very, very intrigued to see how it all plays out, and I wish you, all the runners and part of this community, the best of luck in this endeavor. So I'm just going to, I think I'm going to have to back up. Now, pardon me, if we can maybe shut the lights so that the screen can be the focus, and I'm going to just venture almost haphazardly through the technology here, because I am a Luddite at heart. So my name is Bobby Arbess. My pseudonym on Facebook is Ruben Garbanzo, and I probably have as big a mouth on Facebook as I do in person. And I am an organizer with Friends of Walbran, which started back in 1991, when we were looking at, after all legal avenues had been exhausted, to prevent 16 kilometers of road building throughout the entire Walbran watershed in the summer of '91. And we had built many, many, many kilometers of trails, and McMillan Blodell received a cutting permit, and it was sort of like, okay, now what? The petitions aren't going to protect the forest. All the door-to-door knocking won't protect the forest, and so it was really just, it was a matter of getting out with our bodies and standing between the chainsaws and the trees, and that was when Friends of Walbran began. I would like to just open up by giving thanks to the many people who have taken the beautiful photographs that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. Shane Johnson, who's here tonight. Maybe, Shane, you can just raise your hand. Shane's got a phenomenal eye. He's the man who photographed the Castle Giant, which has become now an iconic symbol of the Walbran rainforest. Chris Eustace. Is Chris here from North Cowichan? No, he's taken some beautiful pictures. Warren Rudd, Tony Sprackett, and Randy Smith. Are you here? Thank you, Randy. Randy's taken one of the most beautiful photographs in this show. The struggle to protect the Walbran Valley, known in the language of the Pachida people, in whose territory the Walbran is located, as Cahigs. And Cahigs means the big river. That's a picture of Anderson Lake, thankfully in the protected area of the Walbran Provincial Park, in the headwater of the West Walbran watershed. A beautiful spot. You go there and you will be pierced by a sense of earthly divinity. So here we are. I think many of us have seen this picture. This portrays the grim scenario that we have been left with as a result of 150 years of logging on Vancouver Island, which has almost entirely eliminated the original coastal temperate rainforests and replaced them with monoculture tree plantations. As you can see, right down here on the south part of Vancouver Island, this last remnant of ancient temperate rainforest, that is the Walbran rainforest, adjacent to Pacific Rim National Park, Susiat Falls, and the West Coast Trail. That is all that is left of the low elevation coastal temperate rainforest. 95% of the southern part of the island has been entirely logged off, and we feel that it is time to completely stop all further old growth logging of this precious rainforest.
Right on.
And there you go again. Thanks to Jens Wieding of the Sierra Club, he's presented this map again from a slightly different perspective, but again, once again, indicating the circled area. This is it. There's no further justification that is valid from any perspective, ecologically or even economically, for the continued logging of this forest. Last week, further road building up the south slope of the Walbran River. On the right side of the picture is the wilderness that we're trying to protect that is outside of the park boundary. This is an 800-year-old western red cedar tree that was cut down to build roads in an area already heavily industrialized, and it was ironic that we were able to walk up this road and get a picture like this, but we figured we would turn it into something good. It's a very strong statement of the juxtaposition between the destroyed industrial landscape and the wilderness that we are all as a community trying to protect. The wild beauty of the central Walbran ancient temperate rainforest, no place whatsoever for industrial forestry, sorry. I like that line. This is a beautiful photograph from Tony Sprackett, Fernwood photographer, of the heart of the Walbran Valley with the encroaching clear cuts. The 7 Steps to Heaven waterfall, I'm sorry, I renamed it this summer. One of the most spectacular waterfall features on Vancouver Island. I've never ever seen anything quite like it anywhere, and everyone who I meet out there says the same thing. It has 7 cascades that kind of plunge down into these beautiful gin green pools. The mist over the ridge between Walbran and Carmanah. Kind of shuts you up, doesn't it? So the ancient temperate rainforest is one of the most biologically productive ecosystems on Earth in terms of the sheer volume of plant biomass. There's nowhere else on Earth besides maybe the California redwoods, which is really the southern counterpart of the coastal temperate rainforest, that grows trees of such extraordinary magnitude and which can live up to 1,200, 1,500, some people even estimate 1,800 years old. These are the oldest living organisms on Earth. Why is it that in the year 2015 that we have not yet figured out how to develop a single law that will protect these ancient living monuments? Baffles the imagination. Some of the creatures of the forest, the northwest garter snake, enjoying the sunshine on the rocks above Walbran Waterfall. When you're out there pondering the cleanliness and the magic of the water along the river, you feel like you belong. You feel like you've come home, and you feel like you never want to leave. And it's an amazing thing, because everyone who's been out there somehow seems to circle back into this movement, this effort to protect this place. It gets under your skin. It has a transformative effect on the soul, and it's indelible. The karst features all along the north side of the river, going downstream from the bridge over Walbran River. Interesting and important geological features, karst, with water that just disappears into below the forest floor and reappears in these streams that just kind of bubble up from the forest floor. The Marble Canyon. And just to let you know that every single photograph in this slideshow, except for the first one of Anderson Lake, are of places in the Walbran Valley that are still unprotected, that were left out of the park boundary in 1994, a park boundary that was established in loyalty to the timber interests that one day had plans to come back here and extract some of the largest remaining western red cedar trees on the planet. Anyone know what this is? We have any botanists in the crowd? This is a gnome plant, and it's a saprophytic parasite, and there's many saprophytes in the forest. It's a plant that draws all its energy from decomposing wood on the forest floor and doesn't actually photosynthesize. And so there's many of them. This is one of my favorites, the gnome plant. Look at the waters of the Emerald Pool. And right now the road building on the south side of the river, for your information, is traversing a tributary that flows directly down into Walbran Creek, right down into this pool. And we know what happens when they log adjacent to streams and tributaries. You lose the water quality to sediment and to log debris and to who knows what else. magnificent. You don't have to go to Mexico to see water that just makes you, you know, breathe in that sense of the wonder of life. Anyone know this one? Look at the stigmas on that flower. This is a Lilium columbianum. It's the tiger lily, and they grow in profusion around, what do you say, Shane, like the month of May, June? Down, yeah, right thereabouts. Down along the bottom of the waterfall, there are these places where this white sand just comes up right to the base of these western red cedar trees, and you see lots of these lovely lilies. And there's the bottom of, there's the emerald pool. And this is back in the day, 1991 protests, and folks hanging out on the log up there. So these forests are worth far more standing, obviously, you know, as critical habitats to the many species that depend exclusively on old-growth forests for their survival, and, as we have learned from climate scientists, for the critical role these forests play in sequestering atmospheric carbon and helping to buffer the world from runaway climate change. It was estimated that of all the forests that are cut annually in southwestern British Columbia, it is the equivalent amount of carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere than all the greenhouse gas reductions programs that British Columbians participate in through the carbon tax and et cetera, et cetera. So what we're doing by cutting these forests is that we've got the gas, you know, our foot on the pedal while putting the brake on. And what we need to do is protect these forests so that they can protect us from climate change and all its disastrous effects. Beautiful mountain gentian growing in the riparian habitat, those little wet, seeping, rocky crevices down by the river and the waterfall. Can't get enough of this waterfall, eh? Oh, and there we go. Oops, what happened? There's probably the oldest known tree in the Walbran Valley. I'm sure there are many others that we haven't yet discovered that may be subject to continued logging, but this is the Castle Giant. It's about maybe an hour's walk over the top of the waterfall from the bridge over Walbran River, and there's our poster child, Peter Cressy, who's a very dedicated activist with Friends of Carmanah Walbran. Couldn't be here tonight. He's in England, and he's really been one of the masterminds of the trail building out there. And here's Sonny McRae, his partner, standing underneath what was once the roots, or is the root system of an old western red cedar tree. Again, just boggles the mind at how enormous these trees are, and how there is an interrelationship between the trees and everything that happens in the forest floor. This picture kind of reminds you of how thin the soils of the temperate rainforest are. You know, when a tree falls, often there's no soil there. It's just this mass of shallowly rooted root system, you know, that is kept in place by this underground network of mycorrhizal fungi, these channels, these complex networks of fungal mycelia that connect every single tree in the forest together. And when they log, and the forest canopy is no longer there to protect the forest floor and to ensure that these delicate networks of mycorrhizae are protected, that the forest simply will never grow back quite the same way. And I remember seeing a video called The Battle for the Trees. And there's an old faller by the name of Jim Gillespie who had worked in the industry for many, many years and had opposed the bringing in of the tree farm license system that gave cutting rights to huge corporations over vast tracts of land. And he said, you know, you walk into the forest and you come up to this tree that took 800 years to grow, and you cut it down in an hour. And he himself, later in life, recognized the tragedy of that. And he said that with tears in his eyes. This is the Emerald Giant, down above Emerald Pool. And here's our friend, the marble murrelet, which is kind of one of the more important indicator species of our coastal temperate rainforests. It's an endangered seabird. that is actually in the same family as birds as penguins. Can you see the penguin in there? Yeah. You see? It's got these little short stubby wings, and it can fly up to 300 feet below water to catch fish. And lo and behold, these seabirds nest exclusively in old-growth forests because they can't build their nests. They lay their eggs on these giant limbs that are covered in moss, and they create a little kind of like a ring of poop around the nest site, so that when they're coming back from the ocean where they're feeding, that they can find their nest. A most amazing thing. The first nesting sites of the marble murrelet in Canada were found in the headwater of the Walbran Valley. There was a research that was initiated by the Western Canada Wilderness Committee, and since then, extensive research has been done, and the Walbran Valley has been identified as hosting the highest concentration of nesting marble murrelets in the world. Now, does Teal Jones do any kind of environmental assessment to determine whether the thousands and thousands of old-growth trees that they cut per year in the Walbran Valley are habitat for marble murrelets? No, they do not. And so how do we know? Well, the answer is, it just doesn't matter. But to us, it does. To those of us who feel an obligation to speak, as the Lorax said, for those who cannot speak, then it does matter. So on another topic of scientific research, there was extensive research over 15 years done by Dr. Neville Winchester of the University of Victoria Biology Department to look at the unique ecosystem of the ancient forest canopy. And lo and behold, what they have discovered through their research facility that was once in the Upper Carmanah and in the Castle Giant, that hundreds of species never before identified by science live in the suspended soils of 200 feet off the forest floor in the canopy of this forest. These are species that have been proven to not exist at all in second-growth forests. What gives the Ministry of Forests and logging companies doing business on public forest land in British Columbia the right to drive species to extinction? The answer to that question is there is zero right.
They have no right.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to include too many images of forest destruction because I think many of us who have driven the back roads on Vancouver Island have seen enough for a lifetime. And so I'll keep this part of the slideshow short. But I did want to point out the logging situation currently encroaching on the central Walbran Ancient Forest. This picture is enough to make you want to cry. On the right, we have all of the industrialized landscape on the south side of Walbran Creek, almost entirely logged off. I'd like to introduce David Cascagnette, who's in the audience. Dave, would you please stand up? He looms 6'7". This is Dave. He's been in the Walbran Valley for 2 months. And when we established the witness camp after Teal Jones received a cut block approval for 4424 on the north side of the river, right around in there, Dave heeded the call. We were asking for someone to come and help maintain a continuous presence in the Walbran Valley. Dave had just been out at Elphinstone Mountain, where they successfully used direct action to stop a road building development into an old-growth bear sanctuary. And Dave said, oh, I've got nothing better to do than to protect the planet. And he showed up in the Walbran Valley. And it was probably a month after Dave had been in the Walbran at the base camp, down at the bridge, waiting for something to happen, in 4424, hearing the sounds of fresh blasting, of trees falling, that he decided he was fed up with the sounds of destruction all about him, took it upon himself to stop a Teal Jones road building crew going up into this area here. So, way to go, Dave. Dave epitomizes the strength of autonomous action.
No kidding.
And so, we want to prevent this destruction from ending up over the north side of the creek. And that's what the campaign to protect the central Walbran Ancient Forest is all about. And for those who feel so inclined to protect the remnant groves of old growth forests in here, and to raise the ante and to raise the profile, you know, to say that never shall this go here, then by all means, that's a worthy campaign as well. The road stops here, direct action campaign, summer 1991. I'm going to just show a few slides. All these actions took place in defiance of a BC Supreme Court order. And this is really interesting history. We didn't have computers. This is a poster I made. In 1991, I did everything on a typewriter. This is making me feel really old. But I guess, you know, compared to the old growth forest, we're all babes in the woods, right? Anyways, this is the first poster. You know, we didn't have like email or anything. You just ran around town and you just posted every frickin' bulletin board you can find, right? And you know, anyone you met on the street, you say, hey, do you know about the Walbran Valley? You give them the thing, and next thing you know, they're out there with their family camping. Next thing you know, they're sitting in a tree. It just kind of unfolds organically. There is no master plan. Anyways, beautiful. A guy showed up from England. We call him Wild Man John. He got on the edge of the bridge over Walbran River with a climbing harness, and he painted that beautiful banner, that beautiful mural, and it's still there today. Wilderness forever. And 25 years later, there is only one cut block that has ever crossed over this bridge that was built to haul out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of timber, and we will keep it that way.
Right on.
That's where my rally spiel kind of tied into my slideshow spiel. Awesome. So this was the first arrest. Faith Nolan in the Walbran Valley. You know, there's probably more, RCP officers than there are tree huggers in this picture. And there's my Uncle Saul. I love you, Uncle Saul. Awesome. There we go. Runs in the family. And yeah, that summer, like I said, we tried to stop 16 kilometers of road building. We almost, stopped. I think all but maybe 2 or 3 kilometers were not built. And one of the strategies was to do tree sits at the road right-of-ways. And so this individual was up in this tree platform. He was fully equipped with like a poo bucket. There you go. He kept it at a distance. And he had his food and he had his water and everything up there. And basically they just kind of walked past and they just kept felling trees, right? And he eventually, I won't actually tell the story of Rolly. Maybe I should. Should I tell the story of Rolly? Okay, well he was from down south and he had his own, what he called his own personal form of Mountie repellent. And basically he smeared his body with feces so that the police wouldn't arrest him. It's kind of gross, but it actually was extremely successful. They never did arrest Rolly.
No, they didn't.
But after about a week up there, they were really annoyed that they couldn't do a perfect job. They'd already kind of fallen the road right away down that way, and they still had these trees that they couldn't get. So it was kind of irritating them. And so eventually someone went up and they cut one of his ropes, and Rolly swung this way, into the forest floor, and he fell into a big mound of salal. And that stuff could be, it kind of cushioned his fall, and Rolly survived, and he was chased by police dogs right down through, and he did the run you guys are doing. But he did it in the other direction. And he got out of there, and Rolly had a beard down to his belly and braided hair down to his butt. And one day he arrived at our activist household on Speed Avenue, he said, and we opened the door and we didn't recognize this clean-shaven, handsome gentleman. He said, it's Rolly! And so eventually the RCP did come to our door, and Rolly had to go back to his home country, and I'm wishing Brother Rolly well, I really am. He did an amazing job. Another colorful character in the Walbran Valley. Another colorful character was this guy. One day, every day we were trying to figure out a different way to kind of stop these road building incursions into the rainforest. And this guy said, just take my van, just take it, do whatever you want with my van. I don't need it, just use it. We were like, all right. Well, we parked it on the other side of this road from this really, really steep precipice. And we painted it, and we broke the windows, and we filled it with rocks. And there's poet Christine Lowther from Tofino. She's filling the van in. And here's what we did. We took this large log and we moved it. It took hours and many, many people. We rammed it underneath this van filled with rocks that went right over the edge of this cantilever, and then some guy, you know, who's now a real estate agent, he got onto this platform, and, you know, that was the blockade for the day. Well, the followers arrived at 5 p.m. with their, you know, coffee in hand and their hands in their pants, and, you know, and then there was the, you know, the process server who came every day from the court and the RCMP, and they all arrived together, you know, and they kind of stood and they watched and they looked, and they went back to their trucks, and they came back to the road, and they had pieces of paper, and they stood side by side, and they lifted them up. 10, 10. Just like Olympic judges, you know? They were impressed. And that's an example of how nonviolent direct action will win admiration and respect in the hearts of those they call your opponents.
That's right.
We're all in this together. Sorry for the blurry picture. Here's another interesting road installation. This is a tripod, you know, that was set up, you know, where the person's basically in a little seat at the top, and this thing, and she's about 15 feet up, so they needed the front end loader to get her arrested. And we worked all night to do this, you know, and it took hours, and it was cold, you know, and the gal, she, you know, she had a kryptonite lock around her neck, and it was kind of locked into like a little eye hole in the log, you know. She was a little bit nervous. It was her first arrest. And, and so, you know, the RCMP officer gets up there, and, you know, and he says, "Where's the key?" And she said, "In my pocket." And we all been up all night long, and I went, "No." And the guy from the Times columnist was there, you know, the reporter. I turned to him, I said, "Richard, can I get a ride back to the city?" Anyways, so as a result of all that, and through enormous public pressure, office occupations, banner hangings, tree sits in the city. If you ever wonder why it's illegal to climb a sequoia tree,
That's right.
on the legislature, because
That's
Walbran
right.
activists climbed that sequoia tree and hung a banner between the flagpole and the sequoia tree. Anyways, we succeeded in a partial victory of a 16,000 hectare park, Carmana-Walbran Provincial Park. So not that I am aiding or abetting or encouraging anyone to do anything unlawful, but never underestimate the power of direct action. There's an old IWW saying, direct action gets satisfaction, and it did indeed. But there was something wrong with the park boundary. And if you look in the middle here, you'll see this has been known disaffectionately for a long time as the bight. The piece of the forest that was part of this intact watershed that the industry wanted to get a bite out of. And so, when the multi-stakeholders sat around the table to draft the park boundary, it was heavily dominated by big timber. And they said things like, "How much biodiversity do we need?" That was one of the questions they asked around that table, you know. Don't you, it was a Ronald Reagan thing, you know. You've seen one tree, haven't you seen them all? Because they're used to just protecting like the big lonely dog, you know, you've seen that, right? Where their idea of ancient forest preservation, you just have one tree standing in a clear cut. And you stand on the tree and just pray the thing's not going to fall in a windstorm, you know. And so today, that bite is now part of a new wilderness campaign for the Central Walbran Ancient Forest. And nothing was done there for 25 years. We were just thinking, well, you know, they don't seem to be coming back. Everything seems to be fine. We enjoy the place. There's no one there. We don't have to pay fees to go camping. You just go out to the end of the logging road, 3 hours from Victoria, and there you are in the heart of this magnificent coastal rainforest. But in June of this year, Teal Jones, who has the license for TFL 46, they presented a logging plan for 8 cut blocks right across the heart of this area that contains some of the biggest western red cedar trees in the world, the emerald pools that I showed you, the Castle Grove, the waterfall. The place that gets the most recreational use in the Walbran Valley. The place that was ground zero in this amazing direct action movement that succeeded in establishing protection for the whole park was not protected. So it's this crazy irony. And today this is what we're dealing with. Now that shows you, that little red mark, the small fraction of this company's TFL that is in that 485 hectare central Walbran forest. It's not a big ask for us to say, you know what, you don't need to cut in there. You've got this whole TFL to cut in. And I got a few figures here. TFL, Teal Jones has got over 63,000 hectares in their harvestable land base in the TFL. We're talking about protection of 485. The area requested, the hectares of mature forests that they had in the tree farm license in 2003 was 29,000 hectares of old growth forests in their TFL in 2003. After 12 years, directly corresponding to the 12 years of the BC Liberals in government, this 29,000 hectares has been whittled down to 11,000 hectares. So this company and the companies before them who held the TFL have logged over 18,000 hectares of old growth forest in their TFL, an area larger than the size of the entire park. And now they're saying that all they have left, and this is quote unquote, Hanif Karnali, the CFO of Teal Jones, told me on the phone, we only have 11,080 hectares left in our TFL to cut. And I said, well, couldn't you afford 485? He said, quote unquote, it would hurt our business. Now I want you all to, in a moment of sympathy for the corporate sector, give a big aw. 1, 2, 3, aw for Teal Jones. I mean, they are coming to us in the guise of a beggar, acting as if they have no options, acting as if their business is going to collapse, and that they're, and we heard this in the language of the court injunction the other day, and that they will lose the loyalty of their customers.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enough. So anyway, just to give you an example of what this small cut block of 3.2 hectares was very, very small. I mean, they're wanting to sort of trespass into a no-go zone, but they're saying, oh, it's just 3.2 hectares. Well, why don't you do 3.2 hectares on the other side of the river, where the cut blocks are 50 and 100 and 200 hectares? And besides which, 3.2 hectares is actually itself not a small area. It is the equivalent of 90 log trucks. 3.2 hectares is 3,584 cubic meters of wood, which is the equivalent of 90 log trucks. It baffles the imagination how much destruction is happening on our island. We don't see it because we don't live out there. They see it, they know what they're getting away with, and now it's time for us, if I dare to say the word, to stop them. Oh, there's going to be a lawsuit any second. I'm going to be served with the papers. You know? So every year, as of for 2011, they are allowed to cut 381,000 hectares, cubic meters of wood. They never cut all of it. That is the equivalent of 10,000 log trucks per year. That's what the Provincial Ministry of Forests, Lands and Natural Resource Operations, isn't that a mouthful?
Yeah.
You know, it used to just be the Ministry of Forests. That's what they allow these people to cut. It's crazy. So here we are, trail building. I want to talk about trail building. The Friends of Carmanah Walbran are into trail building. And this is a picture of the beginning of the boardwalk building that happened in 1992, where I'm somewhere in that picture talking, and we had 60 people come out one day, and we built boardwalk all the way from the bridge almost all the way up to the winter crossing over the top of the waterfall. And there it is today. It's been replenished by Friends of Carmanah Walbran volunteers. I want to give Friends of Carmanah Walbran volunteers out there. Beautiful boardwalk. Have to get hewn from wood that's just strewn on the side of the logging roads to waste. And Peter Cressy did this beautiful signboard. We are creating park facilities in lieu of the government doing nothing to create park facilities, even within its own park. So we build a park, and people will come, and and then hopefully one day the logging companies will just buzz off. Part of the fun. But anyways, here we go, heading out for a trail building weekend with wire for the boardwalks so people don't slip, keep it safe. Really want to make sure that people are able to access publicly owned, ancient forests so that people understand what is going on out there and will want to go out and enjoy it, because that's, that's the best we can do. It's the best relationship we can have with this place, is to go out and enjoy it with a light footprint. Beautiful bridge crossing, put in this summer. Boardwalk staircases up to the top of the waterfall. And this summer, we had an event on August 22nd called Draw the Line. We decided it was time to draw the line again on Walbran Bridge, and Eric Nordell of the Social Coast brought his action bus out with 40 people on that logging road. Give Eric Nordell a hand. That was awesome. No small feat around the hairpin turn around the precipice at Cantilever Canyon. And all these folks were there. There's Eric down there, handsome looking gentleman. And everyone showed up, and basically we drew the line, painted the line on Walbran Bridge, and everybody stood there with their fists up for the camera. Where are all those people now? Who knows? But my son was there, and there's Bill Jones, Apache elder, environmental advocate, and a supporter of the protection of the Walbran Valley rainforest. And I want to give Bill Jones a hand. There's my son with the Habs t-shirt, Bobby Arbess, having a good time up there with all the folks. We've got Dave, former federal environment minister, David Anderson. I think Ben Ice sits in there, city councillor. Or is that Jeff Wright? Oh, that's Jeff Wright. Sorry, Jeff Wright. The big ask. The big ask. A permanent moratorium on industrial logging in the 485-hectare central Walbran Nation forest, containing the 7 steps to heaven waterfall, emerald pools, Tolkien Giant, Marble Canyon, Castle Grove, the fabled Castle Giant, boardwalk trails, and all contiguous wilderness adjoining the park. Some of the most magnificent, low elevation, ancient forest camping and hiking anywhere on the island and the world. It's our responsibility to protect it. And we're not just saying protect the trees. We want to see the government move immediately to implement an alternative strategy for ecologically managed, labor-intensive, job-producing, second-growth forestry to end all further old-growth logging in the watershed.
That's right.
But you got to back up your words with action. And you can see the line over the bridge. And after the cut block was issued for 4424, Friends of Carman and Walbran felt it was necessary to establish that presence. And there's an aerial photograph taken by T.J. Watt from an airplane of the witness camp. The day we set it up. Folks working together to build the kitchen area. There's now a full 4-burner propane stove with like a countertop and sink, and for the visitors to the Walbran Valley. We've now turned the witness camp into a visitor center, and everybody is welcome to enjoy this facility. And our 2 witnesses arrived from the Sunshine Coast, Trevor Shingle and Dave Castagnier. I've never seen 2 individuals hunker down so happily in some of the most inclement frickin' weather in the fall season. These guys have been amazing. And so the guys, typically what happens, the boys are out there, with Jennifer. Is Jennifer Whitehouse here? Or is she up in the valley? Jennifer Whitehouse. Awesome. Give Jennifer Whitehouse a hand. She arrived a little bit later. So Jennifer and Trevor and Dave would be out there all week and nobody would be there. And then all over on the weekend, all the weekend warriors would come out, and arrange the kitchen and move this and move this and move that. Poor guys. So this is one of the work parties that happened, on a really rainy Saturday morning where we kind of reinforced the tarp there, expecting a huge windstorm. And good meals cooked down at the witness camp, now visitor center. Does anyone recognize this pot of veggie stew? Hey, no? I'm sure someone in this room could cook it. You never expect it to reappear, right? Jennifer, Trevor, and Dave relaxing at camp. Dave, Trevor, and Erica Harriman, the owner of Wildfire Bakery, Lily's Club, who's been an extraordinary support for both the witness camp and for the efforts of trail building and communications and in-town logistics. She's a powerhouse. And here she is with the boys proposing with Bill Jones. Lovely photograph. These are really nice bear caches that were built to keep the bears out from away from the food. Unfortunately, they weren't strong enough to keep the mice out. But Charlie Appleford of Fernwood, maybe. Charlie, you here? Nope. Well, give Charlie a hand. These are beautifully constructed boxes. And this is the picture that I think should have been sent to National Geographic magazine. It was taken by Randy Smith. A climber named Michael Locke, a lovely guy. When he asked, what can I do? I'm a climber. I said, well, we need a way to get over the river into Cut Block 4424 so people can witness the beauty of that ancient forest that's about to be logged. And so he built this, he said, oh, I can build a Tyrolean line. And so he built this line across the river, and this photograph is just lovely. He looks like an arboreal spider. Straight out of Neville Winchester's, research chest. And just lovely. I still do want to send that to National Geographic magazine because it's such a beautiful symbol of a human being integrating in such a lovely manner with the natural environment. Much like you runners are going to look as you're going through the forest. And here's a helipad at the boundary of Cut Block 4424 that was decorated with branches several times by unknown species in the forest. And this is, what do you call this, Mark?
I tend not to try and name it, but it looked to us like it was a leaning tower.
Yeah, they called it the Leaning Tower. The Leaning Tower of Walbran. Yeah, that exotic kind of, name is a nice counterpoint to another exotic concept that was on the court injunction yesterday, where they called it profit à prendre. It was money that they hadn't yet made.
That's right.
That they were going to make, that they would, if they did make it, they would sue people.
That's
Profit à prendre. There's a concept for you, eh?
Well,
We should have a petit déjeuner pour la profit à prendre. And this is one, we brought a biologist into 4424 to survey all the flora and the fauna. Of course, it was early November, and there wasn't a lot showing. Many of the perennial herbaceous perennial plants had died back, and the birds were no longer nesting there. But they found this amazing tooth fungus, and it's called Hericium. It's a bear's head, and apparently it's edible. Has anyone ever seen one of these? Yeah, cool, eh? And this thing, apparently it weighed 25 pounds. Now that speaks to the biological life force of this forest and its nutrient cycle. And an amazing thing happened this fall that no one in 25 years of going out to the Walbran Valley, including fishermen who have been out fishing along the coast of the mouth of Walbran River, sockeye salmon came right up to the bottom of the waterfall, and no one's ever seen them before. I can't explain it, but I talked to a fisheries biologist who says that can't happen, but there they are. Yeah, apparently they generally tend to spawn in lakes that are like on the upstream side of the river, streams that are on the upside of the lake. But there is no such waterway in the Walbran Valley under the waterfall, so it's a mystery why they're there. Maybe they came just to help out. So here we are when the Wilderness Committee presented their postcards advocating for the protection of the Central Walbran Rainforest. It was over 5,000, it was close to 6,000 postcards were presented on the front steps of the legislature, and we went down to support that day. A couple of gray-haired activists, my Uncle Saul and me, and Joan Rousseau, former leader of the Federal Green Party. A couple weeks ago, we had a big action at the Ministry of Forests, Wake Up for the Walbran, where we showed up and we set up a little symbolic campsite, and John Cash served flapjacks. You didn't want
flapjacks.
Flapjacks? Not pancakes. Yeah, he said I'll only do it if you don't call them pancakes. Got to call them flapjacks. And I just wanted to introduce John. John is the owner of Soul Point Resort out in Port Renfrew. He's an instrumental figure in the protection of the Avatar Grove and a strong advocate for big tree tourism in the Port Renfrew area. Everyone, please welcome John. There's my uncle, doing his thing, looking great. A little bit almost like 4424. That was our message to the media. He said, what's your message? I said, government's got to back off from 4424. Here's a cut block map of the north side of the river. All the devastation. Getting very close to the park boundary. And this is the point that some of the folks who have been on the front lines have been making. Is that, we've got road building coming straight up this way. Right smack along the park boundary. We know that cannot be good for the park. There's a vast body of literature that says if you log right to park boundaries, that the parks themselves cannot sustain, that the ecosystems will deteriorate within the parks. And so I think another key point that we have got to make is no more cutting around the park boundaries at all. There's a picture of an earth mover I took going up that road all the way up to the boundary near Sad Lake there within the park. What an ugly sight. Respect existence or expect resistance. When a line is drawn, you got to hold the line. This is a nice image from the BC teacher strike. I love it. Forward it. There's been a long-standing case against logging old-growth forests on Vancouver Island. And there's Dave Cascagnette and Trevor Schinkel turning away a logging crew and having a chit-chat with the member of the Cowichan RCMP detachment. And there's Dave all alone! All alone! I have never heard in the history of civil disobedience on this island an individual single-handedly turning away a logging company's work crews for up to 3 days on his own! And advocating for a better way to do business in the process. Thank you, Dave. And there's me and Lee Bly with our lovely friends at Carmana Walbran banner. Avoid to the government. Avoid costly confrontation in the woods and rescind cut block 4424. As heroic as it is to take a stand of civil disobedience, it comes with a huge price to the people engaged in those actions. Lawsuits, an inability to work sometimes for extended periods of time, court appearances over in Vancouver. It goes on and on. It's a kind of situation that you really would like to avoid if you can. And so when you hear about people on the front lines receiving injunctions and being named in lawsuits, and you can't be there, do something to help out. Get on the phone, call the government, tell them that they can prevent that from happening by doing the right thing. And that's what we're asking for here. And we're not alone. Environmental activists exist within forest-dependent communities. And in fact, many forest workers themselves are environmentalists. And here you see, this is from the Clackamas protests, forest industry workers against non-sustainable logging. In the last 12 years in British Columbia, 20,000 forestry jobs have been lost as a result of overcutting, as a result of wood waste, and raw log exports. There is absolutely no reason why anybody can argue with any degree of validity that you need to destroy these forests for jobs. And sometimes the first people who will tell you that are the forest workers themselves. And I have heard that many times before. Back in 1991, when we were sitting down with 3 IWA locals to sign the South Island Forest Accord, I was told by Bill Rowley, who's now the NDP MLA for the South Cowichan, I believe, he said 25 years ago, as the IWA president, there is no need for us to continue cutting old-growth forests. There is enough second-growth forests for us to manage. That was 25 years ago, and all we've seen is accelerated logging of this forest. We really need to step up to get this government to step up. And here we go. It's not just about us. Ego versus eco. We are part of the web of life. These forests are, support a myriad number of species, and we are just one of them. And so really what we're looking at is an economic system that's either about ego, I want it for me, my wealth, my profits, versus eco, where we're making decisions for the benefit of the planet as a whole. Until someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better, it's not. Straight from the mouth of one of my favorite characters, the Lorax. save the Walbran for future generations, so kids like this can continue to encounter the mystery of life. Another thing that came up in the court injunction yesterday, for some reason, the company was arguing that under section 58.21 of the Forest Act, the minister is permitted to postpone the operation of a cutting permit for up to 2 years. They are worried that we are winning and that the government will do this. And so they're asking the government to enforce their cutting permit now before it's too late. Let's keep pushing. To-do list, visit Walbran Central Facebook page for updates, info, actions, and community engagement. Visit the Central Walbran, the Friends of Carmanah Walbran Visitor Center there, and visit friendsofcarmanahwalbran.com. Just visit. And now a commercial break from your favorite local forest products company, Teal Jones. Thank you very much. That was a little bit of guerrilla media from our friend Darren, Alexander, and Sue.
Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you, Bobby.
You're welcome.
That was informative and entertaining. Beyond, I think, what any of us were expecting. I think you've given us reason to fill a room like this, and given all of us a reason to tell 10 of our friends. So that's our ask. Bobby said we should go and visit the valley. I would encourage all of you to do that over the Christmas holidays. If the team from Against the Dark would raise your hands. These 6 intrepid souls are going to get out there on the 22nd. We're going to get really wet, really dirty, but we're going to explore an area, and we're going to bring some images and some ideas back to allow others to understand what they too can do in that valley. We'd also encourage you guys, many of you participated this evening. We're giving the people on the ground there, Friends of Carmanah Walbran, a little bit of resources to continue their action. Bobby, we'd like to give this to you right now. I don't know really what's in here, but this is given with a lot of love.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Let's all hang out for beer, eh?
If you guys do have a chance, please speak to Bobby. I mean, his passion and his excitement about this area is quite infectious. But better yet, get out there, understand how you two can be involved in this fight, and really hit the phones, talk to Teal Jones, talk to your MLA, talk to the government in any way you can. There's always a way to participate, so encourage the rest of you to enjoy your evenings, but really go home thinking that you can be a part of this fight as well.
So on the 22nd of December, we had these grandiose plans of this loop we could put together. Then we went and did a recon and discovered that most of the trails we wanted to run don't exist anymore due to neglect in the provincial park, whether that's neglect on behalf of the province or underuse on behalf of citizens. It's probably a combination of both. So now we're going to do an out and back run starting from the main park trailhead, and for some of us that could be a run. For other people it could be a hike, it could be a walk in the woods. So we would encourage anybody who wants to come up on the 22nd, camp out for a couple nights, meet like-minded people, experience the park, visit the witness camp, connect with your community, and just get that feeling that can only come from being in that place. As Bobby so eloquently explained, there's so much value there that can be passed on to future generations, but it needs protecting. Obviously we're talking about being within the park for the project that we're doing, but to have that 465 hectares, it should be included in the park anyway. You know, it's not a huge ask of the government to stop the planned logging by Teal Jones. So anybody who wants to come on the 22nd, if you've yet to be up there, if you've gone before, come join us, hang out. It should be a great time.
And folks, if you want to join us, we're going to be taking names and email addresses up at the front counter. We'd love you to sign up and just let us know who you are. What we'll do is we'll keep you informed of other ways that you can get involved, and we'll also connect you in with Bobby and the friends and the other organizations that are here. I just want to do a shout to Ken and TJ, who are just coming in from the block right now. They're from the Ancient Forest Alliance, so if you've got any questions about how they're getting involved, talk to them. Emily from the Wilderness Committee, where are you, sister? Emily's right there giving a wave. If you want to talk to her about what they're doing, that'd be rad. Mark from Sierra Club. Are you here, bro? Mark's right here from the Sierra Club of BC, also involved in this. You've obviously met Bobby. So all these folks have a part in this. And so if you give us your information, we'll connect you in with them and let you know how you can be involved. But just to sort of, I think, end off is that one way, in some ways the best way, is to go out there. Because if you go out, you can't help but fall in love. If you fall in love, you can't help but get activated in your own way. So whether it's tomorrow, whether it's on the 22nd, whether it's sometime soon, get out there and see these places, connect with them, and get active.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.